Digital media people, both intro and advanced, will be doing this. This is a new tool no one's ever used in my class before. So let's get started and learn something new about this thing right here, which if I hover over it should say like mesh tool, which it's not saying. There it is, mesh tool. All right, we're going to start with a shape, just an ellipse. Make sure I'm on the right layer here. And I'm going to draw a circle, no fill, and black line. I'm going to hold my shift button down to make a perfect circle. Alright, so there's my circle. We can see that it's empty, right? And it's right there. And I'm going to come over here to this mesh tool. And when I come to the top, it gives me this little box with a plus sign. It's going to start creating a little mesh on this thing. A little three-dimensional mesh. You'll see that? It's adding these lines. I'm going to add just like there we go. So some in that direction. Then I'm going to come over here and do some in the horizontal. And I'm trying to do equal amounts on each side. If you don't like where it went, just hit Command Z and you can do it again. Okay, we have a mesh. And you may notice, or that hopefully from your 3D modeling skills that you now have, that this mesh seems to be following the curves of a sphere, right? It looks more like a ball. It's not a grid that's flat across here. They follow, and that's what it's actually trying to do. It's trying to kind of give us this three-dimensional mesh. Mr. 80, we done with 3D? I don't want to do 3D. Don't worry. We're in Illustrator. We're going to learn how to use this mesh tool to make color, to add color to an object in a way that you normally could never do in a vector program such as Illustrator. What we're going to do, yeah, you could do with a paintbrush in Photoshop very easily. Photoshop and Illustrator are different, and they do different things for different reasons, for different purposes. If all we are doing is creating graphics for the web, for the internet, then we could basically use Photoshop forever and not look at Illustrator. Illustrator, if you remember, is vector-based art. It is scalable. It has no pixel information. It can scale to something very tiny, to something the size of a blimp, and your artwork will always look crisp and the same. All right. It also is very small file size as opposed to a large file size. So there's a lot of things, a lot of reasons why you would use Illustrator versus Photoshop in the real world. Okay. Without getting too complicated with what that means and how you would use that, because it really doesn't matter. We're just here to learn a real funky cool tool and what we could possibly do with it. All right. First thing I want you to notice, we put those in, and look, it says it's white now. And I can grab this with the black arrow, the selection tool, and sure enough, it filled this sphere with white. That's fine. It just is like a default. That's fine. We're going to start adding color to this thing, and we can add colors based on every one of these little points. So if I take my white arrow, where'd it go? It's there. If I take my white arrow, I'm going to grab this row. So I just clicked and dragged right around there. Got that. I have all those little points. I grabbed all those points. I'm going to just pick a color over here and just going to pick this dark red. And look what it did. It put a little gradient of color there. All right. I'm going to grab this little row right here of dots, and I'm going to click again with that dark red color. And look at how it follows the arc and the curve of this. Okay. What I'm going to do here is not going to really show off the power. That'll be in the second video. Look at what else happens. You can actually kind of adjust the shape on these, but I don't want to get into that on this one. Let's just keep this a sphere for now. I'm going to grab another row here. Actually, instead this time I'm going to grab that little square, and look what happened. These four dots are now colored, and if I fill with that color, it's filling that area. Okay. I can grab along this edge here and just use a different color. Let's use something even lighter. I'll grab this row. I'm going to throw another color in there. All right, it's going to just start. It can just start random. I can randomly colorize this just based on picking these colors here like that. All right, I'll grab these down here, use a lighter color. Okay, and so you can see that you're spot coloring this one object with these multiple, they're basically, it's kind of a mesh gradient tool. These are these gradients that are flowing from each other between the lines. So I'm going to grab, let's add some more color here. I'm just picking random, right? It doesn't really matter at this point. We're just learning what this does. We don't care what it actually looks like. I'm going to grab all those guys up there. I'll fill those with yellow. I'll grab those, fill those with yellow. That way we have just, everything has color. All right. You could not do this with just a regular gradient, right? Where it can be random and all over the place. Gradient usually just flows from one color to another, and then that flow is as many colors as you want in it, but it's linear, right? This isn't linear. This is saying wherever I have a point, I can have a different color. And the other interesting, great thing is that I can choose to add. So I can add another row in here because maybe I want more of a difference here, or I want a different color right in between those two lines there. Now I just put a yellow row in between. Okay, I can come to that mesh gradient tool again. I'm going to say I'm going to put another line in here. Give me a double line. I don't want a double. That's all right. I don't really care. And say that I'm going to grab that row, that new row that I just made, and say I want to put a whole different thing in there. All right. So this can get pretty complex depending on where you're going and what you're trying to do with it. Okay. Now you don't have to use a circle. Let's move this guy up. Now let's get a different shape, and we will use a rectangle tool. I'm going to make a rectangle. It's just got a head green select in. I'm going to make it black and white. I'm going to remove the inside. I'm just doing that to show you, to just reinforce to you what's happening here, right? Come on. Sometimes it's hard to grab the line. There it is, right? So now we see it's empty. And then as soon as I go with the gradient tool and I start, it's this mesh tool here, right? Mesh tool, I called it gradient. I apologize. The mesh tool, it's for putting them in. And then I can start adding some points. They're adding lines, and then I'll add one down the center here, maybe like 2 on each side, something like that. Okay, so and then once again, why did it? Okay, and so I can take the whole thing, select that whole thing, and start it with a color. Let's use some blues. Okay, and then from there I can just grab and start putting in gradients. They don't have very many blue shades. There we go. There we go. And so now I can create this kind of gradient. Now that's a linear gradient that we could have made anywhere, any old way. So let's mix that up a little bit, and let's just grab. I can shift grab if I want and grab multiple little squares. And let's just throw some funky color in there like yellow. Okay. This is just to, I just want to show what it does. I'm not interested in showing you what we can do with it. That's in the next video, which is coming up right now. Right now, I just want you to try to make 2 shapes. I will explain on Canvas what the actual assignment is and what you're going to owe me. Also, do know that these shapes can be adjusted, right? You can take this shape and then you can, these are all points that can be moved, because it's, and this is something that you definitely couldn't do in Photoshop, right? I mean, you could use some sort of distorts and stuff, but you couldn't adjust the shape of something after in Photoshop, whereas in Illustrator you can, right? Things are always editable forever. That's the other nice bit of vector art, the other nice idea for vector versus pixel-based, bitmap-based like Photoshop, right? So now you can see, you can start to begin to see the power of what can happen here, and how you can begin to shape something. Okay, and that's really going to be in the next video. What the practical application, what could we actually use this for in an illustration sense? All right, so first step, make a sphere, make a rectangle, use the mesh tool on it, and just make something pretty colors. All right, that's it for now.